What Trump just did is in the Bible. Is this prophecy in motion? The nations are aligning exactly where the Bible said they would. On November 18, 2025, Trump met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to finalize alliances that match Daniel and Ezekiel's end times prophecies written 2,500 years ago. You will be shocked when you discover 5 findings that show these diplomatic agreements are positioning the final coalition before the tribulation begins. Number 1. The Abraham Accords, the covenant with many. November 18, 2025. President Trump sits down with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at the White House. It's the first meeting between these two leaders since 2018. The headlines focus on oil prices, defense contracts, regional stability, but buried in the discussion is something that made every prophecy teacher in the world sit up and take notice. President Trump announced that he will sell F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. Now, to most people, that's just a weapons deal. Advanced jets, military hardware, defense industry profits. But to students of Bible prophecy, that announcement signals something far more significant. Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Sunni Arab world, the guardian of Islam's holiest sites, the nation that has opposed Israel for 75 years, is moving toward full normalization with the Jewish state. And that has everything to do with a prophecy written by Daniel 2,500 years ago. But before we get to the prophecy, you need to understand what the Abraham Accords are, because without that context, you won't grasp why prophecy watchers are saying, this could be it. For decades, Arab nations refused to recognize Israel's right to exist. No trade, no diplomatic relations, no cooperation, just hostility, wars, and terrorism. But after the Accords, something changed. The UAE and Bahrain, both Muslim-majority Arab nations, officially recognized Israel, opened embassies, established economic ties, began security cooperation. The agreements were called the Abraham Accords because Abraham is the father of both the Jews, through Isaac, and the Arabs, through Ishmael. The symbolism was intentional. 2 family lines, estranged for 4,000 years, coming back together. Morocco joined in December 2020. Sudan followed. Rumors circulated that other nations, Oman, Qatar, even Indonesia, were considering it. But there was always one nation that mattered more than all the others: Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia isn't just another Arab nation. It's the Arab nation. It's the birthplace of Islam. It houses Mecca and Medina, the 2 holiest sites in the Islamic world. Every Muslim on earth prays toward Mecca 5 times a day. Every Muslim who's able makes pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia at least once in their lifetime. Saudi Arabia has enormous religious authority in the Muslim world. It's also the wealthiest Arab nation, the largest oil producer, and the de facto leader of the Sunni Arab bloc. So here's the reality. If Saudi Arabia normalizes with Israel, most of the Arab world follows. If the guardian of Mecca says it's acceptable to have relations with the Jewish state, other Muslim nations can justify it too. That's why prophecy watchers have been saying since 2020, the Abraham Accords are significant. But Saudi Arabia joining, that would be the real game changer. And now, in November 2025, Trump is hosting Mohammed bin Salman, discussing the sale of F-35s, moving Saudi Arabia closer to that normalization. So why does this matter prophetically? Because of a verse written by the prophet Daniel 2,500 years ago. Daniel 9:27 is one of the most studied, most debated, most analyzed prophecies in the entire Bible. And here's what it says. "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." Let me break down the key phrases because every word matters. He shall confirm the covenant. The he in this verse is the Antichrist, the future world ruler who emerges during the tribulation. And the word confirm doesn't mean create from scratch. It means strengthen, enforce, make firm, give power to. So the Antichrist doesn't necessarily create a brand new peace treaty. He confirms, strengthens, or enforces an existing agreement. With many, not with one nation, not with two nations, with many, multiple nations, a multilateral agreement involving numerous parties. For 1 week. In Daniel's prophecies, weeks refer to weeks of years, 7-year periods. So 1 week equals 7 years. This is the final 7 years before Christ returns to establish his kingdom. What this means, at some point, a world leader, the Antichrist, will confirm, strengthen a covenant, a peace agreement, with many nations, a multilateral treaty, for 7 years. And that confirmation triggers the start of the tribulation, Daniel's 70th week, the final countdown to Armageddon and the second coming of Christ. For 2,000 years, Bible scholars wondered, what covenant? With which nations? When would this happen? And then, in 2020, something unprecedented occurred. The Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords are a peace normalization agreement with many nations. UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, potentially Saudi Arabia, and others multiple Arab nations normalizing with Israel through a single framework. It's exactly the kind of covenant with many that Daniel described. So the interpretation many prophecy teachers are making is this. The Abraham Accords may be the template, the framework, the existing agreement that a future leader, the Antichrist, will one day confirm or strengthen for a 7-year period. Think of it like this. The Abraham Accords are the house that's been built. Right now, no one's moved in yet. No one's signed a 7-year commitment. No one's triggered the prophetic countdown. But the house is ready. The framework exists. And when the right person comes along and says, "I guarantee this agreement for 7 years," the clock starts ticking. Right now, the Abraham Accords involve important nations, but they're small. UAE has 10 million people. Bahrain has 1.5 million. Morocco and Sudan are significant, but not powerhouse nations. But Saudi Arabia? That's different. Saudi Arabia has 36 million people. If Saudi Arabia joins the Abraham Accords, it transforms from a regional agreement into a truly comprehensive covenant with many. It brings the full weight of the Arab world into normalization with Israel. And according to the interview with Saudi expert Karen Elliott House, the Crown Prince has set conditions. He won't join unless there's real progress on a Palestinian state. But here's the question. What if someone comes along who promises to solve that? What if a future leader brokers a deal that appears to give the Palestinians a state, brings Saudi Arabia into the Abraham Accords, and guarantees the whole arrangement for 7 years? That would be the covenant with many, confirmed by a charismatic leader for a specific time period, involving multiple nations. Exactly what Daniel prophesied. The pieces are moving into place. So what did Trump just do? He moved the pieces closer to that moment. By hosting Mohammed bin Salman, by announcing the F-35 sale, by strengthening U.S.-Saudi ties, Trump is positioning Saudi Arabia to eventually join the Abraham Accords. Is it happening today? No. Does the expert in the interview think it'll happen soon? No. She says the Crown Prince won't join anytime soon. But the fact that it's even being discussed? The fact that it's no longer unthinkable? The fact that Saudi Arabia is being armed by the United States, is moving toward economic cooperation with Israel, is being positioned as a partner rather than an enemy? That's unprecedented. That's historic. And prophetically, that's stage setting. But the Abraham Accords aren't the only prophecy being positioned. Because there's another prophecy, written by Ezekiel 2,600 years ago, that describes exactly which nations will align with Israel and which will oppose it. And when you look at what's happening right now, the match is stunning. Let me show you. Number 2. The Gog-Magog Alliance. If you've studied Bible prophecy at all, you've probably heard of the Gog and Magog War. It's one of the most detailed, most specific, most studied prophecies in the entire Old Testament. Ezekiel 38 and 39 describe a massive invasion of Israel by a coalition of nations led by a figure called Gog, of the land of Magog. This invasion happens in the latter years, the end times. For centuries, scholars wondered, who are these nations? When will this happen? What triggers the war? And then, in the last 30 years, something remarkable occurred. The nations Ezekiel listed started aligning exactly as he predicted. Let me show you what the prophecy says, and then let me show you how what Trump just did fits into it perfectly. Ezekiel 38, 1-6, the invading coalition. Ezekiel 38, 1-6. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Let me identify these nations using modern geography. Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, ancient regions in what is now Russia and the former Soviet states. Most scholars identify this as Russia and its sphere of influence. Persia, this is the easiest to identify. Ancient Persia is modern Iran. No debate, no ambiguity. Persia equals Iran. Ethiopia and Libya. North African nations. Some scholars include Sudan and other African Muslim nations. Gomer, likely modern Turkey or regions in Eastern Europe. Togarmah, also likely Turkey or Armenia. So the coalition is Russia or a Russia-aligned power, Iran, Turkey, and various North African nations, all invading Israel in the latter days. Here's what's stunning. That exact coalition is forming right now. The nations that protest but don't fight. Ezekiel 38:13. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey? To carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil. These nations don't join the invasion. They don't send troops. They don't help Israel militarily. They just ask questions. They protest verbally, but they don't act. Who are Sheba and Dedan? This is where it gets specific. Biblical scholars have identified Sheba and Dedan based on ancient geography and historical records. Sheba, an ancient kingdom in the southern Arabian Peninsula. The Queen of Sheba visited Solomon. Her kingdom was wealthy, powerful, and located in what is now Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Dedan, an ancient region in northwestern Arabia, modern-day Saudi Arabia. So Sheba and Dedan are widely identified as the Arabian Peninsula, specifically Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. And Ezekiel says these nations will protest the invasion, but not join it. They'll ask, "Are you coming to take spoil?" But they won't send armies to defend Israel. Now, look at what's happening right now. Right now, in 2025, Iran, Persia, is Israel's greatest enemy, preparing for confrontation. Saudi Arabia, Sheba, Dedan, is moving toward normalization with Israel. Saudi Arabia is not allied with Iran. In fact, they're rivals. Saudi Arabia armed and wealthy, but not joining Iran's coalition, exactly as Ezekiel predicted. Saudi Arabia protesting and asking questions, but not sending troops to help Israel, exactly as Ezekiel predicted. The alignment is precise. Why the F-35 sale matters prophetically. The F-35 is the most advanced fighter jet in the world. Fifth-generation stealth technology, unmatched air superiority, a game-changer for any nation that possesses it. Selling F-35s to Saudi Arabia does several things. Signals a deep U.S.-Saudi military alliance. You don't sell your most advanced weapons to enemies, only to close allies. Makes Saudi Arabia militarily capable. With F-35s, Saudi Arabia becomes one of the most powerful air forces in the region, but positions them as neutral, not allied with Israel's defense. Saudi Arabia will have the capability to help Israel, but Ezekiel says they won't. They'll protest, they'll ask questions, but they won't fight. A militarily strong Saudi Arabia that has economic, diplomatic ties with Israel, but doesn't send troops when Israel is invaded. That's exactly what Ezekiel 38:13 describes. Number 3. The peace and safety deception. The Apostle Paul wrote a letter to the church in Thessalonica about the day of the Lord, the tribulation period, the final years before Christ's return. And in that letter, he warned about something specific, something that would happen right before sudden destruction comes upon the world. He said people would be saying, "Peace and safety," not "war is coming," not "danger ahead," not "prepare for catastrophe." They'd be saying the exact opposite: peace, safety, security, stability. And then, while those words are still echoing in their ears, while they're celebrating their diplomatic achievements and congratulating themselves on solving ancient conflicts, sudden destruction falls. Like a thief in the night. Like labor pains on a pregnant woman. Inevitable. Unstoppable. Inescapable. Now, here's what makes this prophecy so chilling. It's not just about what happens. It's about the deception that precedes it. The false sense of security. The belief that humanity has finally achieved what it could never achieve before. Peace in the Middle East. And right now, in 2025, that's exactly what world leaders are proclaiming about the Abraham Accords. Let me show you the verse. And then, let me show you why what's happening with the Abraham Accords, with Saudi Arabia, with the Trump administration's Middle East policy, why all of it fits this warning with disturbing precision. The prophecy. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-3. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-3. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Let me break this down phrase by phrase, because every word carries weight. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Paul is addressing believers, Christians who understand prophecy, people who know the signs. He's saying, you don't need me to explain the timing. You already know. But then he gives them a specific warning anyway, because this particular deception is so convincing, so believable, so widespread, that even believers need to be reminded not to fall for it. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. The day of the Lord is the tribulation, the 7-year period of God's wrath poured out on a rebellious world, the time of judgment described in Revelation, and it comes as a thief in the night, unexpectedly, when people aren't ready, when they've let their guard down. Thieves don't announce themselves, they don't send warning letters, they strike when you're sleeping, when you're comfortable, when you think you're safe. That's the image Paul is using. The world will be caught completely off guard. For when they shall say, peace and safety. Not when there is peace and safety. When they say it. When they proclaim it. When they celebrate it. The words matter. The rhetoric matters. The narrative being pushed by world leaders, media, diplomats, that matters. And the words being used right now are precisely these: peace, safety, security, stability. Then sudden destruction cometh upon them. Then, not eventually, not years later, not after a long build-up. Then, immediately, suddenly, while the celebrations are still happening, while the ink on the peace treaties is still wet, while world leaders are congratulating themselves on their diplomatic brilliance, sudden destruction, as travail upon a woman with child. This is a specific image, labor pains. And if you know anything about childbirth, you know 3 things about labor pains. They're inevitable. Once they start, the baby is coming. There's no stopping it, no going back, no canceling the process. They intensify. They start mild, then get stronger, faster, more frequent, each wave worse than the last. They end in delivery. The pain leads somewhere. It produces something. In this case, it produces the day of the Lord, the full manifestation of God's judgment. And they shall not escape. This is the final phrase, the closing warning. No escape, no way out, no last-minute reprieve. Once the destruction begins, it's too late. The door is shut. The window is closed. The opportunity for salvation has passed.